AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Halloween show. It is the Halloween show. I know before I went to the news, I said you're going to get two shows today. I didn't mean just my show and BK. I was not nearly as clear as I needed to be. You are going to get a twofer of Halloween spectacularness. Might want to say spooktacularness, because tonight is our annual Halloween Spooktacular. It's one of those few times we're not actually doing it on Halloween. And the only reason why we're not doing it on Halloween is we've got coming up on Friday. There's a couple of things. It's a football Friday for a couple of our teams. There's also a good possibility, depending on how deep the Cartersville Lady Canes go in softball, they may have one or even two games that day. It's a double elimination tournament. We're going to have the first game starting on Monday, and it goes throughout the week. And, we're going to be covering the Canes as far as they go, as deep as they go in that double elimination tournament. So we don't want to have any conflict. So we decided to move it up a week. And so it is tonight from 9 p.m. until midnight, till the witching hour. And we will bring that to you this evening. And I am so looking forward to it. I look forward to it every year we do it. It's such a fun, to me anyway, it's sort of like our version of trick-or-treating. You know, we are grown adults. We sometimes get invited to costume parties and we do other things, but this is a chance for us as grown adults to bring you a nostalgic, geeky, fun look and look back at Halloween and what it meant to be part of Halloween, and maybe kicking off some of your own memories of what it was like to be part of, trick-or-treating as a kid versus how it's evolved today, and lots and lots and lots to discuss. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some of our movies. We're going to talk about our candies. We're going to talk about our memories. It's just, you know what? We'll even take your phone calls throughout. It's just about us having a good time and hoping you have a good time with us. By the way, if you have not subscribed, if you're a listener right now, I don't know why you haven't. Why haven't you subscribed to the Alan Sanders Show? I do a daily show, very similar to what we do here on Saturdays. Comes out and every day, generally in time for your drive home from work. So that way, when you've been working all day and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened, don't turn on some Atlanta station. You're going to be, unless you use the app, you might be a little too far away to find out what's going on here in Cartersville and Bartow. But what you can do is you can listen to my show as you come back home, because I'm going to tell you everything you missed during the day and give you my thoughts on the news of the day, not from a legacy mainstream media perspective. I'm going to give you the truth, and I'm going to give it to you as clear and as unvarnished as I can do it. I do have one caveat. When I bring you the news, there is only one thing that you need to understand. I love the Constitution of the United States of America. I love it as written. I love what it represents. I love how our founding fathers argued and battled and thought this through to the nth detail. Do I think they missed a few things? Yes. If you listen to my show, I think that there are a few new amendments that I would like to add to our Bill of Rights. But as it stands, everything I do on my show, every news story I read, every soundbite I listen to or bring to you, every talking point from the left or the right, from people in the middle, from pundits to paid propagandists to researchers and reporters and CEOs and everybody else, everything gets filtered through the constitutional lens. Everything. Because our country is a constitutional republic. And I want to inform. I want you to know what's going on. I want you engaged. I want you to be actively listening, learning, being able to then turn around and later maybe have a similar conversation with others saying, I feel comfortable now talking about what is going on in the world because I feel now I've gotten a much better buffer. I have a much better understanding. So listening to the show will prepare you to hopefully engage in conversation yourself. And I want you a little entertained, of course. I want you to be enjoying yourself along the way. I do tend to be a little snarky sometimes. I do tend to be somewhat sarcastic. I have been known to make people laugh out loud sometimes listening to the show, even when I'm covering something, fairly serious. But the whole point is it's coming from a perspective of a reverence of the Constitution. So if you're wanting to listen to a show that talks about collectivism and workers of the world unite, and from each according to their abilities, to each according to their needs, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it because I talk about things like individual liberty, individual freedom, individual responsibility. I talk about the fact that government needs to be out of your way, not doing everything for you. I talk about the fact that our founding fathers understood that all forms of government, all forms in all of history up to the point of this constitutional republic, every single government ever existed or ever invented by man moves toward dictatorship. Did you know that? I mentioned that on my daily show before, but I don't know if I've done it on my Saturday for you guys. Think about that. Every form of governance, every civilization that has ever had a form of government, whatever that form of government is, always moves toward dictatorship. You think you say, what do you mean? I don't know what you... People get a taste of power. They get a taste of power over other people. For whatever reason, human beings are wired. They like the idea of telling other people what to do. They like the idea that they can, let's just go back in time, own people. You do as you're told. You do what we tell you. We consider you inferior. We consider you lesser. We consider you under our thumb. You're not the elite. You're not the upper crust. You're not the upper class. You're not the chosen. Sound familiar? It's been going on, since mankind learned how to work together in groups. All forms of governance move toward a form of dictatorship. Because the people who gain power, the people who are, quote, in charge, the ones in control, they love that. And no matter how altruistic a few people might be, no matter how well-intended some of those folks are to resist it, the phrase power corrupts and all power and absolute power corrupts absolutely exists for a reason. Because power is corruption. It will corrode. It will corrupt. So what did our founding fathers do? I'm enjoying my opening monologue here. I didn't realize I was going to give more of an overview, but I think this works. What did our founding fathers do? They knew that. Before they started creating our form of government, they understood everything from Greek democracy to the monarchs to even the church with its hierarchy. It all moves towards controlling people. What was our revolution over? We didn't want to be controlled by a king anymore. We wanted to be autonomous. We wanted to be our own nation. We wanted to be free. But our founding fathers understood. We don't want to just kick out King George III only to turn around and put another King George, this would be King George Washington I. Some people wanted that because that's what they knew. Think about how scary it was for the folks living in the colonies here, the 13 colonies. Think about that after the Revolution. Because what did they know? What did almost everybody that came from a Western European nation, what form of government were they used to? They were all used to monarchies. King of Spain, King of France, King of England. They were used to monarchs. Our founding fathers just got done a war for independence. And they thought to themselves, how do we avoid that pitfall? How do we avoid the trap? How do we make sure we don't turn into a dictatorship? I think that's the question that we need to start looking at, and that's what I always look at from my show's perspective. See, when it comes to our form of government, the founding fathers, and believe me, their wives were in the background. There's always wives in the background. What did it mean to have just fought for your independence? What did it mean for us to just have gotten our, quote, liberty? Give me liberty or give me death, remember? The tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. They understood that they just paid a huge price for what they called freedom. But what was going to guarantee freedom moving forward? I want you to understand that when I talk about newsmakers, the people who are in Washington, D.C., the people running for office, the people who are trying to run again to stay in office, when I tell you that my show is through a constitutional lens, it's through the following prism. The prism of our founding fathers sitting in a room saying, how do we stop government from being in control of everything? Think about that. The guys all in that room, all arguing, all discussing, all trying to hash out, well, how are we going to run this nation of ours now that we're free? How are we going to do it? And the rest of the world was watching, and they were all going, oh, bless your hearts. Oh, bless your hearts. You guys think you're going to create some new form of governance? You guys think you're that clever? You know, we've got centuries as nations over here on this side of the pond. We've realized people can't be trusted to rule themselves. People need to be told what to do. People need to be under the thumb of the aristocracy or the elite or the kingship. And our founding father said, no, there's got to be a better way, because we believe in this so strongly, and we believe we won. And they did believe that there was divine intervention, that there was a providence set forth on the path for the future. And so their one driving goal when establishing a government is, how do you make sure it does the things it needs to do while putting in enough checks and balances to keep it from doing the things it's not supposed to do? I mean, just think about that. You heard those terms probably when you were younger. You probably forgot a lot about it until you hear the terms checks and balances. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember. That was something I remember we talked about once upon a time in civics or government or U.S. history. Think about it from the perspective of men and a nation who just fought a war to be free, knowing full well that any government that has ever been constituted, every government that's ever been formed, runs toward authoritarianism and eventual dictatorship. That's what they thought about nonstop. And so everything in that Constitution was about, how do you create a government that answers to the people, is made up of the people, and is for the people. It's a government of, by, and for the people, which means you need safeguards. You need limitations. You need things that are going to rein it in. Because our founding fathers thought government was like a fire. Fires, when contained, when under control, when in a small, very controlled area, can do wonderful things. A fire in your fireplace, phenomenal. You can cook by it. You can warm the house with it. It gives you light to see at night. A fire in the middle of your dining room table or on the floor, you can still see. You're still getting warm, but I don't think you think it's pretty cool at that point when your house is burning down. You needed to contain the fire because they understood all government would run out of control and will burn and destroy everything. And think about this. Why do we have the 10 Amendments? Why did we write the Bill of Rights? Because when the Founding Fathers drafted the Constitution and started going around and explaining what it meant and getting people to read it and answering questions, the people still were like, well, wait a minute. Where does it say we can speak freely? Where does it say we won't quarter troops? Where does it say the government can't illegally search our home? Where does it say we can defend ourselves? The Founding Fathers believed it was already built into the document, but they decided, you know what? Let's carve it out and be as specific as we can. And if you read the Bill of Rights, it's as clear as a pane of glass in sunlight. Every one of those was written to restrain and stop government, not empower it. Bottom of the hour, time for statewide headlines from GNN. Good morning. A little Werewolves of London, Warren Zevon there. Kind of appropriate, given today is our Halloween show. Yeah, I'm doing a little news talk, but coming up in less than 5 minutes, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Read by yours truly in dramatic radio theater fashion. I always try to do that. It's my... First of all, I love doing it, but it's my gift to you, the listener, a little radio theater. It's a chance for you to, instead of always watching everything, closing your eyes, or at least shutting down the lights. That's why I do it twice on Saturday mornings for Halloween show. I want you to be able to enjoy the words of Edgar Allan Poe, to hear the crafting of the story of a man obsessed by another man's basically glazed over pale blue eye that drives him insane, drives him to murder, then thinking he's all clever, hides the body only to see the heart, the conscience, the unconscious, the guilt get the better of him. Telltale Heart, coming up in just a couple of minutes. Just on the backside of our talk about the Constitution and about liberty, good buddy of mine who's listening from Pennsylvania, by the way, I think he's got to be just as surprised about his Senator John Fetterman as I've been on my show, and I really do. He doesn't vote the way I want him to vote, and part of that is because he wants to vote with the Democrat Party, but he doesn't have a problem standing up against his party, which is actually nice to see. Got the exact quote: "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." Thank you, Jerry, for that. Listening from afar. Today is brought to you by Tree Amigos of America. If you need some tree work done, give Shane Barker a call. I mean, you've already got the name. You're a tree guy, and your last name's Barker. Come on. It's perfect. Give him a call right now, 770-676-2300. That's 770-676-2300. You can just do a Google search for Tree Amigos of America. Licensed, bonded, insured, and the only tree service used by Waking Up with Alan. All right, almost 7:38. I'm trying to time this based on I got to do a commercial break coming up. Just a reminder, next hour we'll have Valerie Holt in studios, award-winning baker, chef, a Kansas City Barbecue Society sanctioned judge. She's, again, I said this a lot, she's probably forgotten more about cooking than I'll learn. So I love having her on, and we're going to talk about chocolate chip cookies and all the memories and the thoughts and what goes in and what doesn't go in and what makes for the best, which, of course, there's never one answer, but we're going to talk about what makes for a really, really good chocolate chip cookie. On the backside of talking about the Constitution, I want everyone in the audience to understand that, again, when I do my daily show and when I come here on Saturdays and I talk about the news, it's about not... I know it sounds like, well, you're just on one side or this side or that. I'm on the side of the U.S. Constitution. I'm on the side of liberty and freedom. So if there are two people running for office, they're both going to be flawed. Understand that. There is no such thing as a perfect human being. The idea that is fomented on the left is that you have to be 100% in lockstep with everything, otherwise we hate you. And that doesn't make any sense because it's impossible to be 100% lockstep with everybody unless you don't know how to think for yourself. The only way you get a group of people to be in 100% lockstep is nobody can be allowed to think. Everyone is only allowed to follow, to do as commanded, to do as you're told. I just wasn't raised that way. Ask my dad. God rest his soul. Ask my mom. I was not the kind of person who liked the idea that someone could tell me what to do. And so I'm a big fan of individual freedom and liberty. And I wish a lot more people had learned those skills called critical thinking. All right. We'll take our break. And when we come back from the break, it's time for Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Drew! Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses.
not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me, he had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I first put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see the old man as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into his chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So, you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and the old man not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps the old man heard me, for he moved in the bed suddenly as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close-fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept on pushing it steadily. I had gotten my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For another hour, I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime, I did not hear the old man lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening. Just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew that it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he found it all in vain. All in vain. Because death, in approaching the old man, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and the shadow had now reached and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard me, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until, at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained, and I kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, and so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, and amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable wrath. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and kept still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. the sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then sat upon the bed and smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the walls. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. The old man was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock. Still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness, until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God! What could I do? I foamed. I raved. I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had sat and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God! No, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought and this I think, but anything better than this agony, anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked! Dissemble no more, I admit the deed. Tear up the planks! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart! The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Waking Up with Alan. Kind of a different flavor, a different style for the show. Yeah, we did a little news talk, more about the generic discussion about how I look at our country and when I look at the news. If you're listening to the Alan Sanders Show, or if you are a subscriber, which, by the way, you should be, it's a podcast that drops for free for everybody. There is an opportunity to support what I do, to help me with the endeavor, because there's a lot of fees, there's a lot of costs, there's licenses, there's hosting, there's things that plus my time that goes into it. But I would not want anybody who's maybe on a real tight budget not being able to have access to the shows. So there's always a free 100% free version. We just subscribe. I say subscribe. It just means that you won't miss an episode. It'll show up in your feed, in your reader. So whether you use Apple Podcasts, whether you use Spotify, whether you use, in fact, I'm on YouTube even. Although it's just a picture of the video of the title card. I will be doing video pretty soon. I know I said this a long time ago, and then I kind of backed away because I wasn't sure how to do it and what I was going to need to do. And then I did a quick test not that long ago using a free software package called OBS. And I thought that was just really clever because, a lot of people probably who don't like what I have to talk about was like, oh, BS. But I'm going to be using the OBS software package. I did a test run about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago now. No, about 2 weeks ago, did a test run and was very, very happy with how I think it's going to turn out. Then I have to go ahead and create a Rumble account because I know Rumble, it's like YouTube but with less restrictions. YouTube gets all like crazy with their first of all, they're less likely to censor today than they were, let's say, during the start of the pandemic and since then. But let's go to the phones. We got somebody who's calling in, and I'm going to say good morning on the air, WBHF. Who's this?
Hey, good morning. It's Chris.
Hello, Chris. What's up, buddy?
Couple quick things. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but how's your shoulder doing?
Dude, I'm going to have to wait. I mean, I have to wait till December 2nd, but for whatever reason, when the tendon snapped in my shoulder, and I've got to get, for those of you who don't know what Chris is talking about, I do need rotator cuff surgery. I've got it scheduled. I don't know. There's a thing we read online that sometimes you can get what's called a nerve cluster caught in the shoulder, and it feels between a knife digging into my shoulder to just a dull ache, like someone just hit it with a ball-peen hammer and it's just singing, but it's not horrible. But yesterday, I was doing a high school football, Chris, and I don't know what I did. It was like somebody was taking a drill going through my shoulder blade. It just wouldn't stop aching. It hurt so bad. So I just got to deal with it.
I can kind of relate because I had recently a bad tooth and I could not get any sleep. And thankfully, and I did want to give a thank you to Highlands Point Dental, the one across the street from the Savoy, because they saved my life. They pulled that tooth out, and it was just night and day.
I
could not sleep.
The pain of, I've had that. I had to have an emergency root canal, and for 3 days, I was just, you think you're a tough person, and I have a fairly high tolerance, but when it never stops, when there's just no stop, there's no just even a few minutes of just relief, It's maddening.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention real quick, I thought you'd appreciate this. I found out that the University of Georgia is doing research on the Joro spider invasion. Thankfully, they say that you don't have to kill them on site or anything. It's not that bad, but they have a website called jorowatch.org where you can report sightings of the Joro spider, and I thought you'd appreciate it because it's part of the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
They're invasive species.
Well, and here's the thing, Chris, and I'm glad you brought that to my attention because I wasn't going to do anything initially about 3-4 weeks ago, but they were taking over my yard. They went, 2 years ago, it was cute because I had 3. All of a sudden this year, I had 17 different Joro spiderweb nests. So I did actually go around and kill those nests, keeping the native Georgia spiders safe and intact, because I love having normal Georgia spiders. So I'd be curious to see what they find research-wise, because the initial indication was it is an invasive species. So if you want to eliminate them in favor of protecting the native ones, which is what I did. But maybe it'll turn out that we're just going to accept that they're part of our ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I was just going to mention that if anybody wants to help the researchers, you can look at jorowatch.org.
Well, I will definitely let them know about my backyard, because I've got a couple that, even after I got rid of those initial ones, Chris, I still have 3 or 4 that have come back. So I don't know where they're coming from, but they're replicating pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, I have a spider web just outside my door with a mom and about 3 or 4 babies. So that's what I took the picture of.
Yeah,
so,
and I saw that, by the way.
Anyway, yep.
And the female is the bigger of the two. The small ones are the male version. The females are the ones that look monstrous. They're huge.
Right. So anyway, don't want to keep you.
No, you're...
Just wanted to
dude, I'm having a good time chatting with you. I haven't talked to you in a little while.
I was going to say that I will definitely see you sometime tonight, because I'm bringing you and BK and Walt a treat again.
Aw, well, we appreciate that. And you know what? We enjoy doing our Halloween spooktacular. For us, it's like adult trick-or-treating. We're having a great time. Doesn't matter if everyone's listening or no one's listening. We're still going to do it.
Yeah, well... planning around the 10 o'clock hour.
All right, buddy.
You should see me.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we'll be able to do that. And, of course, the pub crawl will be going on. A lot of things going on downtown, so we are looking forward to that tonight as well.
All righty.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right.
770-386-1450 if you want to be part of the program. I was talking about the show that you can get. You just have to do a Google search, or you just if you have a podcatcher already on your smartphone, just do a search for The Alan, A-L-A-N, The Alan Sanders Show. Very easy to find. I'm everywhere you find great podcasts. I mean, why would I be someplace where it's not great? So, the Joro spider, if you haven't seen them, I don't know how you haven't, it is considered an invasive species, but it's nice to hear that what Traffic Trooper Chris there was telling us, that University of Georgia and doing the research on, exactly what does it mean. And so I like the idea that their initial phase is doing the watch, like if you have any, and reporting where they are, how many you have. I will tell you, though, the only reason why I eliminated the first rounds is because, and my daughter came to me and said, look, I don't mind those big, hairy-looking spiders that put up those, the ones we've seen forever. Yeah, my youngest daughter is terrified of spiders. She goes, they don't necessarily freak me out because they're usually away from the doors and things. But these other spiders are all over the place, and there's one right by the front door, and they're not supposed to be here. And she's right. They are an invasive species. They came from, I believe, China, and probably thought to come on shipping containers, and have slowly taken over a lot of the Southeast. When we were doing our 3 weekends ago, we were in Helen, Georgia for Oktoberfest. We saw Joro spider webs all over the place. So it started me thinking, what if they're creating their webs and eating the same bugs that the other native spiders are used to eating? Are they going to be able to coexist, or are they depriving the existing species of their nutrition? I don't want to see I'm a big fan of like native everything. We have a garden. We love gardening, so we have pollinators, and so you plant the local flowers. You have to know what's local to the environment, so that way it attracts the butterflies, it attracts the bees, it attracts basically your pollinators, so that way your garden grows and your flowers bloom and all the stuff that you want. And so we like the idea of supporting native species and our native agriculture and our native flora and fauna. And so these are an invasive. Now, it may turn out that they go, you know what? They're coexisting. There's no problem. I'm just telling you, I went from 3 individual, quote, nests, if you will, or webs, to 17 the next year. That's a pretty big growth. I've seen those big kind of like the big wolf. I don't know what they call they're real thick bodies and kind of shorter legs when they make these big, giant, perfect webs, your typical Charlotte's web. I don't ever see those outnumber, where I go 1 year where there's 3 of them and the next year there's 30. It's always like 2 or 3. It's like they all kind of set up around the house and they're fine. The Choros were taking over. So, all right. Didn't know I was going to talk about that, but you know what? We're going to head to the bottom of the hour. We're going to get you caught up on statewide headlines, courtesy of the Georgia News Network. We're going to come back, and we're going to switch to Food Talk. It's a Food Talk 4th Saturday, and so we're going to have Valerie Holt in studios, and we're going to talk about the chocolate chip cookie. In fact, I don't even know what she's prepared. Are we going to talk about who invented it? How long ago does it stretch back? What's the first iteration? And what makes a perfect chocolate chip cookie? And we're even going to find out she's actually going to teach a class on this. I can't even believe that there is such a thing, but she's going to do it, and it's already sold out. Sorry, folks. We'll talk about that and more when we come back. Here's GNN.
Somewhere out in the Atlantic Ocean, Alan, BK, and Walt are relaxing on a rented boat.
Yes, this is nice and long overdue. We've needed a little R&R,
You said it. Nothing but the sea and the sky. Alan is testing out his new rod and reel. Hey, Alan, you got anything yet?
Nothing yet. I thought I might have. Okay.
Was that cellos I just heard?
Okay.
Well, the last time we heard music, we were in a canoe, and it was banjos. You remember that?
No, I definitely hear cellos.
Hey, guys, give me a hand here. I think I've got something very big. Okay.
Come on, pull it out. I can just see it. Just one more big yank, guys.
Hey there, guys. Surprise!
It's a great white shark?
Listen, I saw the boat and noticed it was you guys, so I just had to come up and ask, are you doing the Halloween Spooktacular again this year on WBHF?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Fabulous! I love that Halloween show.
You're not going to eat us, are you, Mr. Jaws?
Oh, heavens no. I'm your biggest fan. Oh, by the way, call me Bruce. Ta-ta.
He looked great to be 50.
Just when you thought it was safe on the Saturday before Halloween. It's the Halloween Spooktacular this year on October the 25th, 9 p.m. till midnight, right here on WBHF.
Welcome back, everybody. Waking Up with Alan, a little superstition. Do you have any superstitions when it comes to Halloween and this time of year? When you watch your spooky movies, when it's cold enough and dark enough in the evening that you just start hearing ghouls and monsters and things that go bump in the night? Well, anytime you want to feel maybe a little bit better, there's nothing that beats a nice, fresh out of the oven, warm chocolate chip cookie. Good morning, Valerie Holt.
Good morning, Alan Sanders.
How are you? Happy Halloween.
Well. Happy Halloween.
I know it's not till Friday, but we're doing our Halloween theme today. We're doing our show tonight, and you brought up something that, you know what, I remember as a kid, maybe it's because I grew up in the 70s trick-or-treating, people would put homemade treats in a plastic bag. So you would sometimes not just get the little chocolates.
Oh, yeah.
You'd get maybe
popcorn balls.
Popcorn balls.
Yeah.
You would get like a granola thing. Sometimes you would get a chocolate chip cookie or a pecan sandy or like a sugar cookie. Maybe a little smaller where they would just put one in a little bag and they just drop it.
Pumpkin cookies.
Exactly.
Cookies shaped like a pumpkin.
And I get there's been that move away from, no, I want a pre-wrapped from the store. I want to know.
I know.
But there's something cool about getting a home-baked treat.
You know what? I was watching one of my favorite online cooks this week making popcorn balls and talking about, and he's in his 30s, and he was talking about his grandmother always, and he lives in Iowa, and he was talking about how his grandmother always made popcorn balls for Halloween. And so, yeah, I think that goes back to when, you knew everybody that came to your house. It was a big, you lived in a neighborhood or whatever. And so it was relatives, neighbors. And so
Right.
you knew, and they were okay with that, and you were too, and all that. So, yeah. And if you've got nieces, nephews, grandkids, whatever coming to your house, I mean, I think, yeah, do some homemade things. And then you can also have a bowl of candy for people that might not be comfortable taking those kind of things from somebody they don't know.
I just, you know what, my wife and I, we made this decision years ago. We pulled away from the treats, but there is something magical about when you just decide, you know what, we've got kids coming over or we got family coming over. When you bake something like a tray of cookies, your house comes alive. It's like fresh baked bread.
That smell.
The smell is
so
immediately. It's like cookies.
I know. So somebody should make a perfume out of butter and sugar. They really should. But yeah, I spoke to a group this week, and the topic was not food. And so, but anyway, I was speaking to this group, and so somebody in the group said, and I took cookies. I made chocolate chip cookies, and you can buy cookie sleeves from Amazon, and it's like $200 for $6 or something. They're cellophane. You drop the cookie down in it. It's self-sealing. You fold it over. So anyway, I made a batch of cookies. I took 25. They were all pre-wrapped and all that. And so somebody in the group said, I'm so happy. Like, I was hoping that you actually wouldn't come here to speak without cookies or something, So I said, I very rarely go anywhere empty-handed. If I go to the doctor, to the dentist, to wherever, like, people are always looking in my hand, like, to see, like, did you bring something? So cookies are a good thing for that. So if you want to take something to a neighbor or anything, yeah, that's a good thing.
I teased this before we went and brought you on for our Food Talk Fourth Saturday. If you're new to the listening audience, Valerie has been a guest on the Fourth Saturday for several years because of her credentials, her background, her experience. But I'm a foodie at heart. We love talking food. But one of the things you just told me recently is with a continuing ed via Reinhardt College, you're going to be talking about the very subject we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, well, actually, Berry College.
Berry College.
Yes. So Berry has a continuing ed program called Senior Scholars, and so I actually teach it at Berry, like I'm a regular professor part-time. So, but they asked the professors if they would come and teach something fun, like something else, just in the Senior Scholars Program. So anyway, long story short, I'm teaching a class called The Perfect Chocolate Chip Cookie in December, and I'm teaching a class called The Perfect Pound Cake in November. So obviously leading up to the holidays and, all those kind of things. So, and those both are sold out. And so I thought, hey, that would be interesting to talk about. And by the way, P.S., here's a little bit for senior scholars. There's all kind of things in there: literature, music, hiking, travel. And so if you're curious about what they offer and how that works, just Google Berry Senior Scholars and you can see the list on there. So
fantastic. So you're going to be so we're going to get a preview kind of what you're going to talk.
Preview of the Perfect Chocolate Chip Cookie class. So yeah. And I was telling Alan, believe it or not, there's boo-koodles of podcast episodes online about how to bake the perfect chocolate chip cookie.
It's crazy. But you know what? Is there such a thing? Like, how do you know what is the perfect chocolate chip
what?
cookie?
The joy in that is that you never attain that. You're always looking. And I listened to one of those podcasts this week, and it's from King Arthur, who makes flour, and it's a really good podcast. And you can
Knights of the Round Table.
You can Google that King Arthur flour podcast chocolate chip cookie. But anyway, at the very beginning, the guy said something. This is so true. He goes, the people that are into this, like they care about baking the perfect chocolate chip cookie, they're always tweaking. They're always looking for how they can change it. They're always changing it up. They're always looking for the next best one. And that's me. I mean, I must read at least, 2 or 3 recipes every week, all the time, constantly for years. I'm constantly looking for the perfect chocolate chip cookie. And, I'll say this, and this is just kind of a side note, but if you're into all this and the perfect chocolate chip cookie, you need to go on Instagram and follow a guy called Cookie Guy Rye. I think it's Cookie Guy, like cookie and then Guy, G-U-I, and then R-Y. That's all his page is he goes all around the country. He's done some in Georgia. He's done some in Kennesaw, Ackworth. He's done all the ones in New York City, London, California, everywhere. He travels all over the country, and that's the only thing he critiques is chocolate chip cookies. And it's hilarious, and it's really entertaining. So, but if you like chocolate chip cookies, you would like that. But,
All right, so let's talk about what. First of all, when was this cookie invented?
Okay.
What's the lineage, the history?
1938, a lady named Ruth Wakefield, she and her husband bought this lodge called the called the Toll House Inn. And so one day she was baking cookies, and she was baking just like a regular sugar cookie. It had pecans in it. And she wanted to add some chocolate to it. Well, she reaches in the cabinet. She wants to reach in the cabinet and get baking chocolate. Now, if you're not a foodie and you don't cook, let me assure you, baking chocolate is not the same thing as eating chocolate. Baking chocolate has very little sugar in it. It's very bitter. So, but anyway, she's going to bust up some baking chocolate. She thinks that's going to be a good idea, and she's going to put it in this cookie. Well, thank goodness she was out. So she looks around and she finds what we would call at the like now a Hershey bar, like a regular chocolate
Like a
bar,
block of chocolate.
like a chocolate bar you eat from the store. But it was semi-sweet, so it wasn't like really syrupy sweet like Hershey's milk chocolate. But anyway, so it's made by Nestle. This candy bar, she finds a candy bar. So she finds this candy bar by Nestle, and she busts it up with an ice pick. And she says, I'm going to dump that into the cookie. Well, she's thinking it's going to melt and make pools of chocolate, which you can still do today. But anyway, but it doesn't. Because candy bars have so much wax in them, and still do today. That's why they don't melt, is they've got a lot of wax to hold them together. Otherwise, when you put it in your hand and your hand is 98 degrees, it would just melt. So
Okay, I am this many years old when I have learned that there is wax in
lot.
a chocolate bar.
A lot. And the cheaper the chocolate bar is, the more wax there is in it. Yeah.
I'm eating wax.
You surely are. That's why I'm not a big fan of grocery store chocolate
That must be
bars.
why I don't like chocolate
Yeah,
anymore.
it's called
For some reason, I've
paraffin.
kind of pulled away from
It's called
that.
paraffin wax. Yeah, that's why. And the
Well, obviously
cheaper,
it's edible.
Obviously, yeah, because we've all eaten them since we were kids. Yeah, but if you get really cheap chocolate, and you know where I'm talking about. I mean, if you buy really cheap chocolate, that's
Where
why.
it doesn't taste like chocolate. Like, what am I eating?
Yes, and you're like, this has no chocolate flavor to it at all.
It doesn't taste like chocolate.
It's because it's got so much wax in it.
Oh my
Yeah. So
Okay,
so,
you have blown me. Literally, you have. I have this many. I had no idea. I just assumed.
y'all mark it down.
Exactly.
Alan is surprised.
I just assumed it had a little bit of a higher temp, like
Yeah,
a
it's got-
melting point.
That's why it doesn't melt in your. Otherwise, if you put three Hershey bars in your car, even in April or May, and come home and they get the least bit warm, they would just be a big pool in your car. Much less June, July, and August. But yeah, so it's what holds it together. So anyway, so she chops up this candy bar with an ice pick and puts it in the cookies. They don't melt. They don't turn into a pool.
Right.
And she's like, oh man, like that was a dud. Like that was a big fail. But the customers at the end loved it. And it was a Nestle bar. And so anyway, long story short, she sold the recipe to Nestle for $1.
Oh,
I know. Makes you sick to your stomach. That's why I hate telling this story. I've read this story 100 times, and I hate reading it because I'm just like, oh, lady, I don't know. So she sells it, excuse me, for $1 and a lifetime supply of Nestle chocolate bars.
that again, you almost want part 2 of the story. That somewhere down the line, some executive said, we have made a bajillion dollars off of this. We should at least do something more.
You know what? She actually did become a consultant with Nestle. Now, if she got paid a little bit for that, I don't know. That was women working in the 30s, so you can imagine what she got paid. And her daughter actually did begin to work with her. So they did begin to do work for Nestle. And that was 1938. And even during World War II, they did a thing where they shipped chocolate chip cookies. Nestle shipped chocolate chip cookies to the troops and all that. So because the chips did not melt,
Wow.
in the cookie and all that. So, yeah. So you can thank Ruth Wakefield for chocolate chip cookies. And I was telling Alan, it seems like they've been around forever, but she only did that in 1938.
Right, and it
So
took
not
probably
even
some
100
time
years.
before that recipe even matriculated
Yeah.
through the rest of the country.
That's right, and it had to become standardized. It had to become set, and this is the way it's going to work.
Because
And
you said initially it started as like a pecan cookie.
yeah, it
pecan
was just
sandy.
it was just like a cookie, like a butter cookie with pecans, and she thought, I'm going to jazz it up, and I'm going to put some chocolate in it, but thank goodness she didn't put bacon chocolate in it because bacon chocolate it's It's bitter.
would like it.
It's bitter, yeah.
But let me ask you this. Okay, so you said it had to be standardized. At what point did the recipe that we now call the chocolate chip cookie become the chocolate chip cookie?
I don't have a particular date for that, but I would think in the 40s because they were already, World War II was just a few years after that when she developed this, so maybe a year or two. So I would think if you're already shipping them to troops and all that in the 40s, I would think by then, I would think by the 40s.
So at some point, are pecans still part of the chocolate chip cookie in terms of the ultimate best chocolate cookie ever?
I need to look. In just a minute, we go on break. I'll look on the recipe on the back of the bag, but it always says optional. Most of the recipes that I see, it'll have, half a cup of pecans, it's optional, whatever. But
because I've had some where there's been crushed walnuts in it. I've had some
Yeah.
where it's been pecans. I've had some obviously without. I've had some where it's the morsels versus big chunks.
Yeah.
So I guess we will take our break because when we come back, the whole point was what makes the ultimate, like what is the best chocolate chip cookie? And you're going to teach a whole class on it at Berry College.
I
So
sure am.
I guess it's good. I've got the expert here with me right now. We'll be right back. All right. Well, she's not a super freak. She's actually super cool. We've got Valerie Holt here in studios. We're talking about the ultimate chocolate chip cookie. And the professor is in studios. I forgot she's a professor, and she professes to know a lot of things, which she does. So let's talk about the chocolate chip cookie. You found out when Nestle grabbed that recipe and started to standardize it.
I'm telling you, they were on the run to get this done. So 1939, I looked it up while we were on the break. It was on the back of a Nestle bag by 1939. They didn't waste any time. Within
someone
a year
realized
or two,
they were striking gold.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if Nestle was struggling. And they thought, hey, this is a new way. This is a new way to reinvent chocolate. It's a new way for people to use chocolate. And they weren't wrong.
No, they weren't.
And so, within a year or two at the most, that was a hot ticket.
I'm going to make you just cringe right now. I can guarantee, I just know you. My kids to this very day love to just go to the store and get the dough already made and just make their chocolate chip cookies by breaking it apart, putting it in a pan, and cooking it. Not making from scratch.
You know what? We've all done that. I did that when I was a kid. My daughter did. She and her friends, they all did that. I mean, that's just what you do. I mean, that's what you do. When
but
you're
is that
kids,
the best chocolate chip cookie you can make?
No, Alan.
Of course not.
Duh. No. Speaking of kids, duh. No. So, okay. All right. So, perfect chocolate chip cookie. Everything matters. Real butter.
Yes.
Leave margarine at the store.
Yes.
For everything. It's got to be real butter.
100%.
I melt my butter. If you melt your butter, as opposed to just letting it soften, if you melt it, you get a little bit more spread. The cookie will spread a little bit more than as opposed to if you just soften it. But it's got to be real butter. Flour matters. I use bread flour. So you're going to get a chewier, more dense cookie because bread flour's got a really high protein level in it as opposed to just regular all-purpose flour. So the flour matters. Sugar. It takes white sugar and it takes brown sugar. White sugar gives you the crispy edges. Brown sugar gives you the chew in the middle. And I would say, I don't say this very often, but use a good brand of brown sugar. I use store brand of white sugar, but brown sugar, use a good national brand of brown sugar. Chocolate chips. Okay. I like the mini chocolate chips, and every time I use the mini chips, people go, oh, what kind of chocolate did you put in there? They're so different. It's got so much chocolate in it. It's a Nestle bag of semi-sweet chips. It's just got a high ratio, or it seems like it does, because there's more chocolate in the cookie because it's in tiny pieces.
Gotcha.
Now, there is a small grocery store chain here in Cartersville that carries a chocolate chunk that I really like, but it's their store brand. And I know who I'm talking about, but I love it. They do a really good job with that.
Would they be German? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're of a German company. So
we could talk about them all day long?
That's right, all day long. And I bought some this week. Their chocolate chunks are really, really good. Nestle makes a chocolate chunk that's good, but the big box store here's the only place I found in Cartersville that carries it. The pan matters. This is one of my big rants, okay? A cookie sheet is called a cookie sheet for a reason. A sheet is flat, like a sheet of paper. A cookie sheet does not have sides. If the only pan you have in your kitchen is a jelly roll pan is the pan that has the little, 1.5 inch side all the way around. Flip that thing over and bake your cookies on the bottom of the pan, because those sides are going to cause your cookies to bake uneven because the heat can't circulate. A cookie sheet does not have sides.
Can I ask you a quick question then?
Yeah.
I've seen the big pitch. Buy this cookie sheet. It's got air inside. It's got a
air bake. Yeah.
Air bake. Is that what? Is that a scam or is that real?
It's real. I have 4 cookie sheets and they're all air bake.
Okay.
And I like air bake. So
does that help also keep it consistent cooking the cookie because it's got that gap in there?
I think so. It keeps them from burning on the bottom, and it causes it to bake evenly, I think.
Okay.
Also, parchment paper. Parchment paper needs to become your new best friend. And it's cheap. It's $3 or $4 a roll. And for most people, not me, but for normal people, a box of parchment paper will probably do you 5 years. Because you only bake at Christmas or Valentine's Day or something.
So are you putting the parchment paper on the pan, then the dough, or is it?
Yes, you line your pan with parchment paper. And when I first found parchment paper, I'm like, oh no, I'm putting paper in an oven that's 375 degrees. It's going to set on fire. It will not.
No.
I have used miles and miles and miles of parchment paper. It will not.
Now, remember the book by Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451? That's when regular normal paper will ignite. So unless you're going up to 451 degrees, you're not going to burn your paper.
Well, and you know what? I bake biscuits on parchment paper at 450 degrees all the time, and it doesn't ignite.
Yeah, I think there's actually a different texture in the parchment paper.
But don't do what I do. But I do. I bake biscuits on parchment paper at 450 all the time.
Okay.
But you're going to bake cookies at 375, and so it's not going to ignite. Trust me.
Be any problem.
Trust me, it will not. And that's another thing. Baking cookies at 375, they look different than 350. So you can just try it each way. At 375, they set quicker. The edges will get crispier. So I bake my chocolate chip cookies at 375, and I have forever and ever and ever. If you only hear one thing I say today, if you're like, this girl is crazy, forget everything she just said. Okay, Trust me on this. Trust me on this. Chocolate chip cookie dough needs to set in your refrigerator 24 to 48 hours. Do not bake it right away as soon as you mix it up. Big, huge mistake.
Really?
Yes, and it needs to chill. It's got to go in the oven cold. Putting that stuff in the oven, room temperature, yes, I did it as a kid, but now I know better. I'm an adult. I know better now. So it's got to be chilled. And the longer you let it sit in the fridge, from 24 to 48 hours, you can even let it sit in there for 72. But after that, you got to freeze it. But the better it tastes.
So, and when you put it on the pan, is it just do you roll it? Do you just put a dollop? I mean, how do you know to put it on the paper and the pan?
Here's what I do. I mix up cookie dough. I scoop it with a metal scoop. You got to have a metal. Do not buy those plastic cookie scoops. I scoop it with a metal scoop out onto a cookie sheet lined with foil. I cover it with foil so that I've got 25 little dough scoops. I put it in the refrigerator. I chill it for about 3 hours. Once it's chilled, it's like little golf balls. I have 25 little golf balls. So I can put them in the refrigerator. I can freeze them. It's because they're going to stay separate at that point. And then from there, I bake mine from the refrigerator and I bake mine from the freezer, and it all works the same.
So you bake the balls even if it's been chilling for 48 hours.
Yeah.
You take it out. You still, after making the balls, put it back in the refrigerator to get it back as cold as you can before putting it in the oven.
No.
You don't have to do that?
No. So if I just scoop out dough and I say, okay, today I make up some dough, I put it in the refrigerator. Tomorrow it's been 24 hours, or the next day it's been 48 hours. I'm just going to reach right in there, get it out, put it on a cookie sheet and bake it. I'm going to bake it straight from the refrigerator.
Gotcha. And
if I freeze it, I bake it straight from the freezer.
And perfect every time. How long?
10 to 12 minutes, usually about 10 or 11.
10 or 11 minutes at 375 degrees, but super, super cold.
It's got to be cold.
Awesome.
Got to be cold.
Valerie, I want to go make chocolate chip cookies now. But now I have to wait 2 days before I can even eat them.
That's right. That's the hard part. You got to have discipline.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Until next month, we're going to take a break. We've got Fox News, top of the hour. Good morning, everybody. 9:15 the time, and I'm going to say Happy Halloween, even though it's not Halloween until Friday. This is the Saturday closest, while still being in the month of October. Hey, we talked about what should we do. We knew with Friday night football, plus we've got a softball tournament going on with the Lady Canes. We got a lot of possibilities of some interruption on Friday, so we didn't want the Halloween Spooktacular to be canceled, and we thought, well, could we do it the next day because that's a Saturday? But we're in the month of November, and I think we're already starting to think about it's All Saints Day. You're starting to think about it's November. Now Thanksgiving is coming up with the holidays, decorating for Christmas. It feels like October is the month that you do your Halloween-y because it ends with Halloween. So we opted to put our Halloween Spooktacular on the Saturday prior. So it's going to be tonight from 9 until midnight. So I invite everybody who's listening right now, set your alarm, set your timer, set your reminder. Come on back at 9 o'clock, 9 to midnight. 3 knuckleheads in the studios. We're not the 3 Stooges. We're the 3 nuts. We've got Walt into Darkness, BK, who will be joining me in just a moment from BK on the air. And, of course, yours truly, as we just have our version of adult trick-or-treating with you guys listening in the audience. And, of course, we'll have the phone lines open as we talk about different things, whether it's our favorite movie or our go-to movie, our favorite candy, or the one that ends up, in March of the following year, you're still looking in your jack-o'-lantern and going, yeah, I'm not that desperate yet to eat the good and plenty, so I'm just going to leave it right there. We have those kinds of topics, those discussions. We try to have some music, some fun. We've had guests before. I think this year's going to be more like just a chill, let's relax and have fun looking back at Halloween over the years. And we'll invite you to be joining us with us on the phone lines. If you missed out hour 1, I always do this. I've been doing this for the last several years. My gift to you on Halloween, a dramatic read of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Played it in the first hour for you early risers, but if you missed it or if you came in halfway and I missed the beginning, don't worry. I will give you an encore, and that'll be coming up as we wrap up the show today. So we'll do a shortened version of the Vulcan Mind Meld. That'll be after the bottom of the hour, where BK will join me and we'll chat just a little bit, maybe tease a little bit about what's coming up on his show, as well as what we're going to talk about this evening. And again, please come on back. If you haven't downloaded it, go ahead and download the WBHF radio app now. Get it, and you'll be able to, while you're on the pub crawl, you can listen. You can have an earbud in. I know a lot of people have those AirPods. In fact, I think I'm finally caving to the pressure. Everywhere I go, I see people have these AirPods in their ears, and they're just listening to whatever. Maybe they're on a phone. Maybe that's their way of ignoring me. So they don't have to talk to me. But I always see everybody walking around with the little AirPods, whether they're the Apple or a knockoff. And I want to get a pair, so that way I could do the same thing. I could put one in my left ear, and I could be listening to something while I'm going about doing my daily business, just walking around doing stuff, and still being able to listen. And you could do that if you have the WBHF radio app. You can just listen and stream while you're doing the pub crawl, enjoying your beverage, and listening to 3 knuckleheads here in the studios from 9 until midnight. By the way, if you don't follow me on X, you should. It's what used to be Twitter is now X. It's real simple to find me. You just look for The Alan Sanders Show, and all you have to do is then click follow. I did put the link. It's the Apple Podcast link, but you should be able to just click on it and then go play it, even if you don't have Apple Podcasts on your computer or your browser. If not, I know it's out there in other places. I'll probably share it again on my podcast today, but I shared last year's link. If you want to go out and listen or re-listen to The Telltale Heart, I put that out there on X, and feel free to like and share, or was that what it's called? Yeah, I guess love. You click the like button, which looks like a little heart, and then you can hit the little repost, and that way more and more people will get access to my reading of The Telltale Heart, which, again, will be coming up in just a little bit. All right, it's 20 minutes past the hour. If you're tuning in to try to learn a little bit about what's going on in and around our world and our nation, I am still beside myself with the number of people who have lost their minds over a simple, and it is a simple, White House renovation. I did a show Wednesday of this past week. If you're just now tuning in, or you're just a listener on Saturdays, you don't like podcasts, whatever, I get it. Once again, if you find me on social media, I post on my page account. I've got a personal Facebook page, but I also have a page for my show, which is a public page for everybody called The Alan Sanders Show. It's real super easy. I'm The Alan Sanders Show everywhere you look. Instagram, Getter, Truth Social, YouTube, X. I mean, you name it. I'm out there in any of those platforms. You just do a search for The Alan Sanders Show. But this past Wednesday, I spent, I don't know, I think Tuesday night heading into my Wednesday show, I probably spent, I said a couple of hours, but probably about 90 minutes. I had done the research of looking up and I didn't want to go all the way back to the beginning because, the White House as it is today isn't what it was once upon a time. It's actually a newer building that actually got put in place because the other one was burned down. We had a couple of back and forth skirmishes with the British. But as far as I said, let's look at the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue from 1902 to today. I went back 123 years and said, let's look at every single addition, subtraction, gutting, renovation, rebuild, addition, rearrange. I wanted to I spent on that show, and if you go back and listen, my Wednesday broadcast, or Wednesday podcast, I guess. It's still a broadcast, but you can listen to it whenever you want. If you go and pull that episode, the first, after I greet the audience and give my daily sponsor a plug, I spend about 30, almost 40 minutes. It's that long of a list going through every single addition, change, gutting, rebuild, renovation that the White House has gone through, as we call it, the White House, since 1902. If you go through that whole thing and you're still getting your underwear in a wad, if you're still walking around clenching and going, oh my God, the history is being erased, you're just choosing. You are actively choosing to ignore fact, to ignore history, to ignore everything about that site and that location and all the presidents that have come before, from Teddy Roosevelt all the way through to Trump 47. Folks, even just a little over a decade ago, Barack Obama spent almost $400 million, but this time it was taxpayer money on a 2-year renovation. You guys remember that? Because he wanted to build a full outdoor I don't think it's outdoor, it's indoor, a full basketball court. And it cost $400 million, and it was taxpayer money. And now you're going to try to convince me you're all up in arms over $250 to $300 million of private money? Not a dime of taxpayer money. Not 1 ounce of taxpayer money. This is the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and several private donors all saying, absolutely, the White House should have a premier location, a premier place to have dignitaries, celebrations, whether it's treaty signings, whatever it is. Because you know what the White House does today? And I was blown away by this. We're supposed to be like the shining city on the hill. And you know what the big solution has been for decades at the White House? Rent party tents. Literally, let's bring out tents, and we're going to put tents all over the lawn of the White House so that way people can be sheltered from the elements, but you're literally in a tent. Now, that's kind of cool for the shabby chic weddings. It's kind of cool, I love the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows when you've got the marriage there before the world goes crazy and the dark wizards decide they're going to attack everybody. I get that. That's fun for a wedding. That's fun for you and your family, maybe a reunion. We're talking the White House. We're talking about the home of the President of the United States of America and what so many people for years have called the leader of the free world. And we're putting up tents? I mean, come on. And the people losing their minds, thinking that somehow a 90,000 square foot ballroom that's going to be built to match identical in terms of architecture, in terms of look and feel to the existing core mansion of the White House. How in the world are people losing their minds over this? The only way you are is if you are suffering from some form of emotional derangement because you don't know the history and refuse to go look it up. You don't know the lineage and refuse to understand it. And you think, because you've been lied to, that somehow this is some opulence being funded by you and me, the taxpayer. It's not. And you know what's crazy? I have brought that information to people, and a handful of folks who were initially upset were like, I had no idea. I feel so much better now. I got manipulated by the legacy mainstream media, and that's why I do my show. I want you to have the information. On the flip side, I've had people who go, yeah, but this is different. Like, you're just choosing to ignore everything I just told you. It's not different. It's not different at all. And let me add to it, which I also talked about this week on my show. How hypocritical is it that the very people who are wringing their hands, clutching their pearls, grabbing their hair and striking their chest and screaming and wailing about history. Oh my God, you're getting rid of the historical nature. You've got no respect for the lineage and history of this sacred ground. These are the same people for 4 years couldn't climb historical statues and figures from our history fast enough to topple them, to deface them, to remove them, and then go after historical named buildings and historical named U.S. military bases and go, well, you know what? Back in time, that person did something I don't like. We need to change the name. We need to erase the history. I'm sorry. You guys, if the word hypocrisy had never been invented, there'd be no adequate way to describe your positions. If you were celebrating the removal of Thomas Jefferson, Christopher Columbus, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, if you were celebrating the defacement of various regiments, and especially what I think was so funny, the number of Union regiments, especially in one case up in, I think it was Massachusetts, an all-black regiment, but because people are stupid today and they don't bother to do any research, they deface that thinking that somehow, well, that's the Civil War. That was all about slavery and racism. I'm like, you just defaced an all-black regiment monument dedicated to freed black soldiers who fought for the very freedom that you're supposedly going to be on, but you're too stupid to know your own history. You guys were erasing it for 4 years, and now you're going to come wringing your hands? The White House. Please, spare me. I did all that research for you. So if you go out there, check out the show from Wednesday. And then if you want, listen, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I do kind of, and I hated it because every day I was telling friends, I was like, I don't know if what I'm going to cover today is going to be worth listening to because it feels like I'm recycling stuff, but I'm really not. It's just the shutdown is now, heading into its 4th week. So I've had to talk about that. The White House, that's being bulldozed and been in the news for the last week. I've had to talk about that. The conflation that the left has had over health care. This is ridiculous. Do you know the issue they're talking about, the issue that you keep hearing about has zero to do with the shutdown. And I know the legacy mainstream media is not out there to educate you, and I still get upset when I watch these shows, I watch these programs to get the sound bites, to listen to the guests, and no responsible journalist, there is no such thing apparently anymore, says, well, wait a minute, you keep saying the shutdown is about negotiating premiums, but those are two separate things. One has nothing to do with the other than we can't fix one problem while the government's closed. But this problem is a Democrat problem. You guys, you put the subsidies in place. The left, the Democrats. No Republicans voted for that. But remember when during Biden's era, you guys owned the White House, you owned the Senate, you owned the House, you passed these subsidies, but then you didn't make them permanent because you couldn't get enough of your own Democrats to make them permanent. You put a sunset clause of December 31st, 2025. So you basically created this problem, and now you want to whine and moan because you guys shut the government down and want to blame the Republicans. Folks, again, if it wasn't for the word hypocrisy, I wouldn't have a word to adequately describe the current state of what's happening from the left. 13 times you guys voted to keep the exact same budget going through the Biden era, all the way through to March of this year when Trump had already been inaugurated. You guys voted for the exact same budget. That was the 13th time in a row. And now suddenly, now it's a problem? Now you're trying to turn it into a political issue? Please. Bottom of the hour, 9:30. Here's GNN. Yeah, a little shift there. We go from our typical surfing with the alien, but let's face it, it's the Halloween show. We only have about 5 minutes of our Vulcan Mind Meld because I'm going to bring you my encore of the Telltale Heart. But BK, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. We're not surfing with the alien. We're driving with the 57 Plymouth Fury down the road.
We are.
It's on fire.
We got a vehicle that's really ticked off about people taking umbrage with it.
She's really a live machine, man. It's almost like she's alive.
Yes. I really thought, as far as for the longest time, Stephen King adaptations to film didn't work. Most people didn't know how to make the movies good. The Shining was maybe an early example of where you could do it, but you had to deviate a lot from the story to make The Shining.
Yeah, that'd be, I guess if you read the book, you were disappointed sometimes on that, but I never read them, so I've never had that problem.
The first Stephen King movie that I was like, holy crap, this is art, was The Shawshank Redemption. That was probably the best.
And a lot of people don't know it was him.
But I will tell you, I really liked Christine. I thought John Carpenter did a great job, and all practical effects. Every time you see the car growing and going back to life, they had to think about how to destroy it and then run it backwards to make it look like it works.
And make sure it doesn't look hokey and fake. At the same time.
To this day, am still blown away with the visuals of Christine.
Yeah, and it's one of my. It's on those. It's on the high marks of Carpenter movies. Now, funny you mentioned that about Stephen King, because I think that Christine, The Shining, those are really kind of more. They fit more with. Christine is a John Carpenter movie, written by Stephen King. Shining is a Stanley Kubrick movie, based on Stephen King's work. So sometimes the directors put their big stamp on it, and you can tell. So, yeah.
And other times you get movies that are just utter crap.
Yeah, like one of them was Maximum Overdrive for years, but the more I watched the more I watched Maximum Overdrive, I figured out it's just a comedy. It's more fun. It's more over the top and fun.
Eye candy with,
I like
with
it,
gore.
yeah. But as far as being seriously taken by the book, no, it's not. And Stephen King directed it.
I know.
That's the funny part.
He's even in it at the beginning talking about the ATMs calling him a name.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
We only have, and this happens every Halloween because I do my encore. We've only got about a minute and a half, or 2 minutes. We are going to continue Halloween discussion in your show.
Yes, we will.
So we're doing the Vulcan Mind Meld. Let's talk very quickly. What's going to happen on your show? What continuation of the Halloween theme can we expect?
Let's just say we'll be Halloween heavy today. I'm going to try not to duplicate what we're going to do tonight, but we may hit on some of it because it's just subjects that you can't get away from. So we'll talk maybe some movies. Halloween memories from when we were kids is what I want to focus on, and just dispelling some Halloween hoaxes over the years that have always been reported,
like the razor blade hoax,
that aren't always true. No. That we found out about. So a lot of that coming up. We got all of it. We'll scare people.
Sounds like a fun. And you know what? We did have that conversation. It's the 11th coming up tonight. The 11th annual Halloween Spooktacular.
11. That's scary.
Of course, we're going to maybe tread over common ground, but you know what? We only do it once a year, and it's great to share that with the audience. And I love when the audience feels triggered to not triggered in a bad way, like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. I want to call in. We're absolutely going to have the phone lines open today.
Good. I'm ready. Let's scare people. Let's scare each other.
Well, it's scary all of us being in the same room because we have no idea what's going to happen.
Pretty scary.
With that, folks, again, please mark your calendar. Well, mark your calendar. Mark your timer. Put a little reminder. Set your alarm. Be back here. Now, to keep listening now through noon because we're going to continue the show. BK will be joining. We'll be taking off at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to make sure you get your Halloween Spooktacular ad that's been running for the last week or so. And then we're going to do an encore of the Telltale Heart and then right into BK on the air and have this Halloween discussion. But come back tonight, 9 to midnight.
Thanks for working hard on that spot, by the way.
Well, thank you for writing it.
You're good people.
Thank you for writing it. It took me, I told a friend of mine, it took me like 3 hours by the time I mixed everything, but I loved bringing it to life.
We have such a good time.
We did. It was really good. I really much enjoy it. And I actually have heard from other people saying that was so funny the way Bruce talks. I'm like, yeah, we did that on purpose. That was intentional.
Do you hear cellos? Yeah.
Hello. Hi, guys.
I'm a shark.
Call me Bruce. All right. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, if you missed it in the first hour, turn the lights off or, draw the curtains. Get the kids. Say, hey, look, listen, this is what's called radio theater. This is what we used to do when we had to use our imaginations. We had to imagine what was being depicted with sound and word. We got a quick break and then the Telltale Heart.
Somewhere out in the Atlantic Ocean, Alan, BK, and Walt are relaxing on a rented boat.
Yes, this is nice and long overdue. We've needed a little R&R,
You said it. Nothing but the sea and the sky. Alan is testing out his new rod and reel. Hey, Alan, you got anything yet?
Nothing yet. I thought I might have. Okay.
Was that cellos I just heard?
Okay.
Well, the last time we heard music, we were in a canoe, and it was banjos. You remember that?
No, I definitely hear cellos.
Hey, guys, give me a hand here. I think I've got something very big. Okay.
Come on, pull it out. I can just see it. Just one more big yank, guys.
Hey there, guys. Surprise!
It's a great white shark?
Listen, I saw the boat and noticed it was you guys, so I just had to come up and ask, are you doing the Halloween Spooktacular again this year on WBHF?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Fabulous! I love that Halloween show.
You're not going to eat us, are you, Mr. Jaws?
Oh, heavens no. I'm your biggest fan. Oh, by the way, call me Bruce. Ta-ta.
You know, he looked great to be 50.
Just when you thought it was safe on the Saturday before Halloween, it's the Halloween Spooktacular this year on October the 25th, 9 p.m. till midnight, right here on WBHF.
The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True! Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I first put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see the old man as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into his chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So, you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and the old man not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps the old man heard me, for he moved in the bed suddenly as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close-fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept on pushing it steadily. I had gotten my head in and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For another hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear the old man lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening. Just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew that it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he found it all in vain. All in vain. Because death, in approaching the old man, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and the shadow had now reached and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard me, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved to open a little, a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until, at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained, and I kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, and so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, and amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable wrath. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and kept still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then sat upon the bed and smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the walls. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. The old man was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock. Still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness. Until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale. But I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God! What could I do? I foamed. I raved. I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had sat and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God! No, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought and this I think, but anything better than this agony, anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked! Dissemble no more, I admit the deed. Tear up the planks! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.